Hi everyone and welcome to Left on Red. My name is Red and this is r/Prorevenge. Our first story today is by PJ Expat. The story on how I got promoted to Director of Sales and Sales Recruitment. Now in real life guys, me, Red, I work for a sales organization, so I'm very curious on how our OP managed to pull this off. I've been with my current employer for many years now. Even though I've quit, I've come back to them. My company also has an incentive. If an employee comes up with a way to do business better or changes something that has a net benefit to the company, they get a percentage of the increased revenue. Over the years with this company, I have had several major impacts. Well, about a year ago, I was talking to a senior level manager, let's call him Bob, and Bob was telling me about how the company has been having an issue in recruiting and hiring of new talent for our sales division. Now, I had been in sales before and knew of the pitfalls our structure created and why senior reps would excel and junior reps would get crushed, and had a really good idea on our turnover challenges. Then one night, I had an idea on how to change the sales structure of our company, almost entirely, which would still retain our senior reps, but also make it easier for younger, more junior reps to find success and stability by a result reducing turnover. I spent a good amount of time designing this plan before I ever presented it to anyone. Since this was Bob's area of expertise, after many revision and bouncing it around my head, I called Bob and I presented my idea to Bob. Bob liked it a lot. However, he had a few minor tweaks, and he brought up concerns company executives would have. I tweaked the plan and came up with rebuttals to those objections and shared my plan with Bob. I did this several times. I would say the plan stayed about 90% original. Bob had been with our company for decades at this point, and I've known him for my entire time, so I trusted Bob would be sure to credit me. Considering my name was all over my presentation I sent over to Bob, I expected Bob to share in the love with me, should there be any. I felt that I needed Bob as an ally to make my idea work, which is why I brought him in on my plan. I followed up with Bob and he basically made it seem like my idea was rejected. And the company was going to keep doing what it's always done. Okay, fine, whatever. Stuff happens, and it's not the first time my idea has been rejected. A few months later, and our new fiscal year is starting, and our CEO calls everyone to a company-wide meeting. And as I sit down to watch, I witness our CEO praise Bob for coming up with a brilliant new sales structure, strategy, and compensation plan. It is my plan with my name removed. The CEO is gushing over how wonderful this idea is and how he thinks it will benefit us greatly. I am fuming. Annoyed, Bob stole my work, put his name on it, and took credit. He violated my trust and lied to me. He told me the company had rejected the idea. Yet here I am, watching my company implement my idea. I get on the phone with the VP and let loose. Now, my VP, let's call him Tim, is a really good guy, and I trust him. Tim is taken aback, says that right around the time I presented my plan to Bob, Bob started presenting to senior management, and it was almost immediately considered a great idea. In fact, Bob knew the company was considering forcing him into retirement because they felt Bob was holding the company back and the company needed to make a change, and this idea saved Bob's job. Now, to give you an overview of how in-depth my plan was: completely restructured compensation plan, completely changed how we present ourselves to new potential hires, completely changed our sales training to be more focused on real-world realities, refined the sales order process to reduce workload and streamline, did all that using current infrastructure. Each step included suggestion on how to implement the change. Bob oversaw all of this in his current role. I then asked if I could prove that it was my idea, that I had presented it to Bob, and so forth. Now, Bob and I discussed this over email and Facebook Messenger and another chat app. I went through our emails, Facebook Messenger, and a chat app and took screenshots, created a PowerPoint, makes it easy to present ideas, and sent it to my VP. 2 days later, my VP called and said I needed to go into conference call with HR, my VP, and the CEO. In the meeting, we discussed the plan I had created, the collaboration I had done with Bob, and my plan to implement it. Not only that, I presented the research that I had done, which Bob did not have access to, and justified why my idea was a good idea. The CEO seemed impressed with what I had done and convinced that I was a true creator. I was then asked what I thought had happened, and I straight up accused Bob was stealing my idea and removing my name from it in an attempt to further his career. I was told they would be having a separate meeting with Bob, and after that, they would inform me of any future changes. A week later, my VP called and asked me if I was offered the chance to implement my plan, would I be willing to do that? This was obviously a promotion, and I said, of course. 2 weeks later, I get a call from my VP telling me he is coming to my location to visit me. He also tells me I should make sure I look sharp and presentable. I tried to figure out why he was coming, but he wouldn't say. 2 days later, I come into the office, check my email. Now, all big retirements or resignations are announced company-wide. I see an email stating that Bob has retired. What I found strange is the retirement date was effective immediately and that his replacement will be announced shortly. Generally, this is a time period for a takeover to happen, and the replacement is announced in the email along with a brief overview of their qualifications. The time for my VP to show up comes, and in walks my VP and the CEO. We go out to lunch, and the CEO says, OP, I have come to visit you because I always think it's best to give major promotion news in person. But I'd like to offer you the position of Director of Sales and Sales Recruitment and put you in charge of implementing your idea. To which I accepted, naturally. Then I asked, is this why Bob, retired? To which the CEO smiled and said, after talking to you, I talked to Bob. And discussing it among senior management, it was decided that it was time to change, time to inject new blood into the organization. And Bob really wanted to start his retirement, so it was best for everyone. I smiled and said thank you. I know perfectly well Bob intended on working until the day he died. Well done, OP. Good job. Our next story is by RR Info. The Karen that breeds minion Karens. This all happened around Christmas, New Year's, but I just found this sub and I'm obsessed with it now. So I have to give my story. My grandparents immigrated to Canada from Italy in the 70s and opened up a restaurant. When they passed away, the restaurant went to my parents. Over the decades, they grew and expanded it. I have been working at the restaurant since I was 15. Over time, my parents got older and eventually retired, becoming snowbirds, go to Florida for the winters. They left the restaurant to me about a few years ago, but still retaining a small percentage ownership as additional revenue stream along with their savings and annuities. Soon as I gained control, I pretty much modernized the old place, remodeled the restaurant, changed the logo, reached out to local and national papers to put out ads, invited food critics, bloggers, vloggers, etc. It was very slow at first, and I began to worry about the loan I took out to do all this was the biggest mistake I had ever done, and I ruined 3 generations of my family's business. But eventually, it began to work, and a local, semi-famous YouTuber featured us in one of his videos, and that was the catalyst for more people to come and review, and eventually, we were seeing 5 to 10 times the business we usually get, even if it's a Monday. We became a hotspot for major events, and it wasn't uncommon for a celebrity to come. On those nights, I even arranged for special high-profile chefs to visit and cook for our guests. Costs a fortune. So during the holidays, we were beyond packed. I got to the point where people would have to make reservations in July to get a table in December. This process took years to get to where we are now. When it gets busy, I don't just sit in the back office. I'm on the floor doing whatever is needed to be done. Even if that means I greet people, bussing tables, or even mopping the floors. Other nights, when we have high-profile guests or events, I am in a blazer and am acting in charge. One night, a group of 6 women walk in. 5 of them look like they are still in their early 20s, and the head of the group looked like she was in mid-20s. Best theory, she was one of the other 4 girls' sister, or possibly an older sorority sister to incoming college freshmen maybe. I was greeting at the door as they were walking up. Queen Bee Karen was telling the baby Karens on how this place is awesome. Food is amazing, and there might even be celebrities there. When she came up to me, she told me she needed a table for 6. I replied, "Of course, can I please get the name on the reservation?" She looked at me and said, "Oh, I didn't make one, but it's okay. The owner is a personal friend of mine. He said he always has 1 or 2 tables that he keeps open for special guests and said we can have one of those tonight." Now, generally, this is true for many high-profile restaurants, and lately I have been doing this as well. But I had no clue who this woman was, and she definitely never spoke to me about any of this. I did get she was trying to get in without a reservation, but she literally picked the worst person she could possibly talk to and try this. I told her, "I'm sorry, but we cannot seat anyone without reservation. As you can see, we do not have any seats available." I didn't want to go all, "I am the owner and we have never spoken before, so I never promised you a thing," because I did not want to embarrass her in front of the other girls she was with. At first, she then went on and said out loud to one of the other girls to take a picture of me. She will speak to the owner and make sure I'm either cleaning the toilet or fired by the end of the week. The other girls following her lead were like, "Yeah, kiss your minimum wage job goodbye." I'm not sure if they were in on it with her or they honestly thought she knew the owner. Queen Bee Karen then went on and said, "Look, you can just give us a table or I can make life very difficult for you. This is not worth losing your job." Constantly pointing, just trying to put me down, saying things like, "Obviously you aren't anyone here, because if you were, you would know who I am and never even try to tell me anything other than yes or of course." Constantly trying to belittle me and get that table. At this point, it was a long day for me, and the way I saw it, I had 3 options. Tell her I'm the owner and just call her out on all of this. Number 2, just give her the table and let it be. Number 3, teach Queen Bee Karen and her little minions a lesson. I chose option 3 for various reasons, including some personality flaws I'm aware that I have, but I like to think it was at least 50% really wanting to teach her a lesson. I smiled at her, said, "Of course, ma'am, follow me please," and I gave her one of the 3 tables we keep open in case a celebrity comes in. Happens time to time. I told her I apologize for everything and that she's right. It would be simpler to just give her the table. I told her the first 3 rounds of drinks will be complimentary. I sat them down and personally served them. As they were sitting down, I told them we do need one of their credit cards and IDs, just to keep on file, and we will give it back to you before you leave. Queen Karen gave me her cards and told the baby Karens that tonight was on her. I took their orders and got them their drinks and told them, due to how busy we are tonight, there might be a delay on their food. All the girls were thinking of and cared about were their free rounds. They ordered their 3 rounds and still no food. They eventually called me and asked me to check on it, and whole time giving me the world's most nasty attitude since even before they ordered. I told them I will check on it, but also asked if they would like more drinks. They ordered 2 more rounds by the time the appetizers arrived. At this point, they were all drunk, having done nothing but drink on an empty stomach most of the night and only having had salads after. As more food arrives, the more drinks are ordered. What these girls never realized was they are at our VIP table, which alone costs a few thousands just to sit in. But I did not charge them for that. What I did charge them was for all the super expensive cocktails that had throughout the whole night, except for the first 3 rounds. In addition, the table they were sitting in, as mentioned, was VIP, so the menus were a bit different. For one, they don't say prices on them, trade secret. And in addition, it had certain higher-end menu options, such as white truffle, black caviar dishes, and specially imported West Coast oysters, among other things. At one point in the night, I was honestly rethinking what I was doing and thought I might be going too far with these poor girls. They might not know any better, but some things reassured me throughout the night, such as one of the baby Karens asked me if I felt like my life was worthless since all I ever became was a waiter. Also, one of the other employees told me how they were discussing how to mess with me to the point that they can just do this whenever they want and I will know to always give them a table. I also overheard them say, "He's cute, but I would never date a waiter like that. He is such a pushover." There were a bunch of comments like that the whole night, so I kept on with their life lesson. By the end of the night, each girl racked up a bill in the range of $500 to $600 per girl. When I handed Queen Karen the bill of $4,232.23 with tax and tip included, of course. I have never seen anyone sober up so quickly. She went from laughing and giggling with her friends to nearly in tears. She called me over instantly and asked if this was some kind of a joke. I took the bill, looked it over and said, "Oh, yes, I apologize. I will get you the correct bill in a moment." Again, she felt a complete sense of relief thinking she got someone else's bill, called me a dummy, and went on to talking to her friends. To be fair, I did make a mistake. I did forget to count the eighth order of a dozen oysters that cost about $120 per order. So I gladly just went back and added it to the order. When I went back to give her the correct bill, she flipped out again, going crazy. I just asked if there was something on this bill that she did not order. She and the other girls, in shock, go over every single line of the bill, including the first few lines that show their original 3 rounds which say complimentary. They then took out their phones and line by line went over everything for 100th time, adding everything up. Extremely rattled Queen Bee Karen simply said, "1 second, I need to use the bathroom." Part of me thought that she might just pull a dine and dash and leave the baby Karens with the bill. But kinda low-key, I did in a way remind her we had her ID and credit card. Without making it obvious, I thought she was going to run out on the bill. 10 minutes later, she comes back with new makeup. Obviously, she had been crying and makes up a whole story on how the food was awful, the drinks were bad, and so on, demanding that as bare minimum, I should cut the bill in half and the agreement the baby Karens will chip in, even though she originally told them the night would be on her. Then, as if a light bulb went off in her head, she again mentioned her relationship with the owner, as if it were to give me an additional incentive to cut the bill in half. Holding back a grin at this point, I told her no. Just no, I can't change the bill. She whips out her phone and shows me a series of texts with someone called my restaurant's name owner, which pretty much I realized was what she was doing in the bathroom. Just probably changed one of her other Karen minions' contact name and deleted previous texts. So, to start this new script, I read them, then clicked on the content info and told her that's not the owner's cell number. Her reply was, he has multiple phones for business and stuff, of course. You don't know all his numbers. I remember, wow, this girl thought of everything except I'm the owner. I told her, how about this? We call him, and if he says that it's okay to take 50% off the bill, then I'll do it. Her reply was yelling and screaming over the time, where a few remaining customers all began to start looking, and I knew, okay, time to end this. I told her, already in a less accommodating voice, cut the crap, little girl. You don't know the owner. You have never been here before, and if you keep yelling, I will call the police. Her demeanor changed, and she was trying to defend herself the best she could. My reply to her weak comebacks was, my grandparents founded this restaurant. My family has been running this place for generations. I have worked here almost my entire life. I am the one and only owner of this restaurant, and I have never seen you, heard of you, and I definitely never made a stranger I don't know and have never met before tonight any promises. The mini Karens were just frozen and didn't even know how to react. Queen Bee Karen was in tears. I said, now I gave the table you wanted, one of our specially reserved table for high-end clients, which I didn't charge you for, and I gave you 3 rounds of free drinks. If you don't pay your bill, I will call the cops and hand them your ID. In tears, Queen Karen signed the bill, and the mini Karens took out their purses to give her whatever cash they had, which equaled to maybe a couple of hundreds, with the promise to pay her back more. 2 days later, a man walked into my restaurant fuming and asks one of my bartenders to speak to me. I was in the back for a bit working, so he waited a good half an hour for me. He was Queen Bee Karen's father. She was with him too, keeping her head down. I took them both to my office, showed them highlights of the security cameras, which were especially good quality of audio because they were in the VIP, which we had to keep good records of because we had other unrelated incidents before. So I showed him most of it, their comments, their orders, their everything. When all was said and done, he stormed out with her and was screaming at her the whole time they were talking. Haven't seen or heard from either of them since, but the original bill I gave them, the one that did not count the $120 oysters, is framed on my desk. And that was r/Prorevenge. This is Left on Red. My name is Red. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And please hit the bell notification so that you get notified whenever there is a new video. Bye!